this. I'm going to place this somewhere. Hopefully I can get to it. You'll have to excuse me, I've been slightly under the weather. This is here. But anyway, working on right now is the G550. It's a Mercedes. And so what we're doing here is I'm building an enclosure for a pair of Encore 10s. There's actually two of them. They flank either side. Here, let me get the other one. So you've got two enclosures, one on each side, sitting on top of the wheel wells. Here's what we got going. So I've had to do several things in terms of the build out to make this fit correctly. Right now, what I'm working on right now is to put the nutserts across the back here. Because I'm going to have a series. It's actually, actually putting holes on the backside here so that I can drill the nutserts into the car and, for mounting of the panel. Because the way that I want to bolt this, I want to bolt this directly to the steel of the car so that it won't move. So. I'll let you guys just watch. But one of the things about this enclosure that is it's made out of 1/2 inch. It's not a thicker enclosure. It's actually a thinner enclosure. A lot of people like to think, okay, well, you're making it out of 1/2 inch material. It's going to ring. It's not going to sound very good, type thing. And that's not true. As a matter of fact, it really has to do with bracing in this case. And so I know that the material itself is plenty enough, for what I'm doing. This is a port enclosure, by the way. I know the material is plenty enough to do the job that I'm requiring it to do. But I guess my point is, and I'm going to make a video on this probably later in December about this, is in terms of resonant ring. The material itself, what we want to do is that to make this inherent in terms of tone, make sure that the tone sounds good and stuff. We want the wood itself not to ring. We don't need that to happen while we're working on these things, or we're building these things and stuff. Because what will happen is if the wood can ring, what will happen is you'll have energy being transferred off the wood into the vehicle, which can cause cancellation, or rings, or noises and other things you just don't want to have, vibrations, basically, in a nutshell. The other one is going to be that because this is a large surface area, okay, because this wood is ringing, it's live, it has enough energy potential to start canceling out the woofers in motion itself. Because whenever the woofer moves, this is always going to be, slightly out of phase in comparison to the wood, out of the woofer, because the transfer of energy. And so what we want to do now is we want to be able to tie this wall to the forward wall, and also a little bit down here at the bottom, a little at the top, some way of doing it. But basically, in a nutshell, we want to be able to tie the two walls together so that they are always in sync with each other, or pulling in there. I like to do it. What I like to do is I like to pull the walls inward. And it's kind of like doing pre-tension concrete, in a way. But what we're doing is that we're creating a tension on the surfaces, and so we're going to move all this energy above the playing, frequency range that we're going to be operating in. And so that's the goal. You have one of two choices. You either move all this energy potential below the audible range you're listening to, or above the audible range. That's what we want to be able to do. Once we do that, then the enclosure's dead or inert, and we don't have to worry about it making any of the sound. And so at that point, you're like, okay, well, you still have 1/2 inch. It's still not going to sound, the same. It's still not going to sound. It's still not going to sound the same and stuff. But that's not true, because once you've deadened this out, once you've made this, an inert material. There is no tone. There's nothing. It doesn't add or subtract anymore to it. The wood itself, the type of wood, they say, okay, you got the ring, it's live, there's all sorts of, voodoo science on a certain level, it really comes down to the listener, the listener's the key here. But because this is mounted onto, carpeted surfaces, and then this is bolted to the wall itself here on top of that, at that point the box becomes irrelevant in terms of the liveliness of the box, meaning that if it rings or it makes noises or anything else, it's not going to add or subtract to the sound quality of this. And so I find it when guys are building and stuff and they're doing these stacked type enclosures and you're thinking in their head, okay, well, I got to make it as thick as possible so it doesn't have any problems. To a degree, this is you're really chasing your tail on this. And this just, honestly, this comes from, literally decades of building enclosures, testing, playing around, going through the motions myself. When I was younger and stuff like that, I definitely thought that. I absolutely thought about, I got to make it as thick as possible. My baffles have got to be 2 inches thick. All these things, and so, like I said, there's a degree of it not being, don't take it as literal. Okay, there are certain surfaces that would be better if it was thicker, and sometimes it's just simply for cosmetic reasons. It's not necessarily because it's going to make the sound better, and stuff. Like in the case of here, this is 1/2 inch. Yes, the bottom's made out of 3/4 inch, right? But the box itself is made out of this. The only reason why I made this out of 3/4 on this was because originally I thought I was going to have to bolt down through the floor into the wheel well, and I was going to make this a little thicker. That's where I thought the original bolting was going to be. But once I got to building this, and I found out how the shape and everything in this pocket that's in this side panel fit this enclosure. And I had steel behind here, on the other side of the plastic panel and stuff. It made a hell of a lot more sense to just simply attach it here. So, again, I'll from the inside, I'll have large washer bolts here. Just big, large. I'll probably just put 3 bolts in here with large format washers on them to put enough pressure around the surface area, because that's where the 1/2 inch does become a slight issue. Is because it's thin, and so when I apply this pressure on here, if my mating surface is not perfectly flat, I can cause it to deform, right? Not because it's going to make a change in the sound, but because it just simply inherently is causing a weak point in the enclosure, and that's it. Not for anything else other than that. So, usually what I'll do is I'll put a large plate washer to apply pressure on a larger surface area, in there. Sometimes I've done it where I've done aluminum straps, just simply to apply pressure, or I put a larger piece of wood, or I've gone to a hardwood. That's another good choice, is placing a hardwood block in places here, or putting a strap across here. But because my volume here is very finite for what I need, I can't keep adding to the interior of this enclosure. I can only do so much. So I've got to keep this down to a minimal in terms of adding in, stuff. That includes where my bracing has to be located at too, because I have to be able to reach in and bolt this in. So this is just some of the thought processes that you have to go through when you're designing a proper enclosure. Everybody can build an enclosure, throw it in a car. That's great, but what I'm more concerned about is the sound quality of it. The cosmetics is a secondary component. The sound quality of it is the most important. So anyway, that's me babbling on. So what I'll do is I'll come back a little later and stuff and give you some more overall view of everything that's going on. But for now, that's it. You guys have a good morning, and I'll see you later.